The great arena of Vorthen Prime was alive with thunder. Lights flashed across the sky, alien banners waved in the wind, and thousands of strange creatures filled the seats. They had gathered from across the galaxy to witness something never seen before, a gamble so dangerous, so shocking, that even the bravest of them whispered in fear. At the center of the arena stood Lord Kalor, a warlord feared in 100 systems. His armor glowed with silver spikes, his eyes burned red, his voice rolled like thunder as he raised a hand. The crowd fell silent. Kalor smiled, not with joy but with cruelty, and then he spoke the words that froze the blood of everyone present. "I wager my daughter," he said, his voice echoing. "Her future, her destiny, her very freedom, will be the prize of this game." The crowd gasped. Voices rose in disbelief. Who would risk their own blood, their own child? In a contest of chance, it was madness, but Kalor was known for madness, and his power gave him the right to make such dangerous plays. His daughter, Princess Arya, stood at his side. Her eyes wide with fear, she was young, beautiful, and silent. Her fate now tied to the outcome of a game she could not control. The announcers, tall insect-like aliens with wings, shouted the rules. It would not be a contest of war, not a battle of swords, but a series of games, trials of wit, chance, and courage. Anyone could step forward, anyone could challenge. The prize was a life, the risk was death. At first no one moved, no alien dared. They knew Kalor was clever and ruthless. Even in games he twisted rules, he crushed rivals, and none wanted to risk their own lives for a hopeless cause. Silence ruled the arena, until, from the shadows of the entrance gate, a lone figure walked forward. He was human. The crowd laughed at once, harsh and cruel laughter rolled like waves. To them, humans were weak, small, soft creatures from a backwater world. They were not warriors, not rulers, not feared in the galaxy. This man wore no shining armor, no glowing weapons, only plain clothes and calm eyes. He did not look powerful, he did not look deadly, and yet he stepped forward without fear. Kalor's lips curled into a cruel grin. "A human," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "This will be quick. This will be amusing." But the human did not respond. He simply looked at Kalor, then at Arya, the girl whose future had been gambled away like a coin on a table. His gaze was steady, not of arrogance, not of pride, but of quiet certainty. Whispers filled the arena. Why would a human step forward? Was he mad? Was he foolish? Or did he know something no one else knew? The announcers fluttered their wings, their voices high. The challenger accepts. The wager is bound. The games will begin. Princess Arya turned her head. Her eyes met the humans for a brief moment. In her gaze there was fear, but also something else, a flicker of hope, as if she wondered, could this simple creature from Earth truly stand against her father? Could he change her fate? The human finally spoke, his voice calm, clear, and carried across the arena. "If I win, her life changes forever." The crowd roared in response, some with laughter, some with disbelief, some with anger. The idea that a human could win against Lord Kalor was impossible, but the human did not seem to care. He stood like stone, unmoved by their voices. Kalor's hand tightened into a fist, but he smiled still. To him, this was entertainment. To him, this was proof of his superiority. He believed the human would fall quickly, crushed by skill and cunning, but deep inside, a tiny spark of unease began to stir. The drums of the arena thundered, the lights shifted to blood red. The announcers cried out the beginning of the first trial, and the gamble of a lifetime was now set into motion. The air grew heavy. Every alien in the arena leaned forward, every eye locked onto the stage. They had come for blood, for spectacle, for victory. But none of them knew, none of them imagined, that this quiet human, this ordinary figure, would turn their universe upside down. The gamble had begun, and destiny itself was watching. The human stood in the center of the great alien arena, the red lights of the trial still glowing on the walls. Silence stretched for a moment as thousands of alien eyes studied him, some filled with laughter, some with curiosity, and some with hunger. To them, he was nothing more than prey. He gave his name softly, but the arena's sound system carried it across the crowd. Daniel Reeve, a name simple, plain, not the name of a warrior, not the name of a legend, yet he stood with his back straight, his eyes sharp, and his silence stronger than the roar of any beast. The alien announcers buzzed and hissed, mocking his name. Daniel, Daniel, the fragile human, the soft-skinned challenger. Their wings rattled as if they too laughed. The audience echoed, claws clapping, tentacles slapping, fangs flashing. The arena turned into a storm of cruel noise. But Daniel did not flinch, he did not even blink. Lord Kalor leaned back in his iron throne, his armor catching the firelight, his laughter rolled like thunder. Do you know what you face, human? Do you understand? This is not a child's game. This is not a walk in the forest of your small world. This is a wager of blood and destiny. Daniel looked up. His voice calm. I understand, the crowd hissed. Some shouted in anger, some jeered louder. How dare a human speak with such steady tone? But there was no trembling in his words, no weakness. Only the stillness of a man who had already measured his choice. Princess Arya, standing close to her father, watched Daniel with wide eyes. She had seen warriors before. Proud and strong, she had seen them boast. She had seen them fall, but this man was different. His strength was not in muscles or weapons. It was something deeper, something invisible. It unsettled her more than her father's fury ever did. The announcers declared the rules again, their metallic voices rising. 3 trials await. Trials of chance, trials of mind, trials of survival. The challenger who fails loses not only his life, but the prize he seeks. The challenger who wins takes all. Kalor's voice cut through, sharp and cruel. And remember, human, the prize is my daughter. Her future, her chains, or her freedom. Bound by your hand, the words struck Arya like arrows. Her face turned pale. Her eyes fell to the ground, but Daniel did not look away. He stared at Kalor, steady and unbroken. Then I will not fail, he said. The arena erupted with wild noise. Laughter, shouts, alien curses. They believed him foolish. They believed him arrogant, but deep in the far rows, a few silent watchers leaned forward, studying him. Not laughing, not mocking, but watching closely. The crowd's mockery swirled like smoke. But Daniel's calm presence began to feel like a stone in the river. The water rushed and crashed, but the stone did not move. Slowly, without meaning to, the noise began to weaken. Curiosity began to replace it. Who was this human? Why did he stand so still? Why did his eyes carry no fear? Daniel walked to the table where the first trial would soon begin. His steps slow, measured. His hand brushed against the glowing dice that pulsed with alien light. He felt the heat under his skin. He felt the energy hum like a living creature. But his expression did not change. Kalor narrowed his eyes for the first time. A tiny shadow of doubt crossed his face. He had seen warriors tremble. He had seen rulers sweat, but this human, plain, unarmored, unarmed, was not trembling. His stillness was unnatural. His silence heavy. Arya lifted her head again. Her gaze caught Daniel's for the second time. Something passed between them, not words, not gestures. Only a spark, faint but real. She felt her heart shift. Her fear did not vanish, but it began to mix with a strange, dangerous thing. Hope, the announcer shouted. The human challenger prepares, the first trial awaits. The gamble of destiny begins, but Daniel raised a hand slightly, his voice calm. Before we begin, I must ask, do you believe chance is real, or do you believe chance is only a mask for skill? The question shocked the crowd. No one had expected him to speak like this. Some booed, some cursed. Kalor sneered. Chance is the fire, human, and I am the master who bends it. You will see soon enough. Daniel nodded once. Then let us see. The drums of the arena began to pound again. Heavy and deep, the floor trembled. The first trial was seconds away. The alien screamed for blood. Kalor's eyes burned with hunger. Arya's hands clenched at her dress. But Daniel simply breathed, slow and steady. He was a human in a world of monsters, a fragile creature in a nest of predators. And yet in that moment he did not look fragile. He looked like the calm before a storm no one expected, a storm no one believed could come from a man like him. The human challenger had taken his place, and the galaxy itself held its breath. The floor of the arena shifted with a deep grinding sound. Stone plates moved apart, revealing a glowing table of crystal, its surface alive with fire and mist. Strange dice floated above it, spinning slowly, each side flashing with alien symbols that no human language could read. The crowd leaned forward. The first trial had begun. The announcers' wings rattled as they cried out. The game of chance, the game of fate, the role that decides life or death. Their voices echoed across the vast space, filling every ear with tension. Lord Kalor rose slightly from his throne. His red eyes gleaming, he pointed toward the dice. We begin here, human, do not hope for mercy. Chance is mine to command, the crowd roared. Beasts howled. Tentacles slapped against stone, and the air vibrated with raw excitement. Every creature wanted to see the human humiliated, crushed, ended before the real trials even started. Daniel Reeve stepped forward, his face calm, his body steady. He looked at the floating dice, not with fear, but with a strange curiosity, as if he had seen dice before, as if he understood them. Though no human should. Kalor waved his hand. The dice glowed brighter. They dropped into his massive claws. Fire licked around his fingers. He laughed. "Watch carefully, human. This is how fate bends to power." He threw the dice with a force like thunder. They clattered across the crystal table, rolling, spinning, flashing with wild light when they stopped. The symbols glowed in perfect alignment. The announcers screamed, "Victory!" Lord Kalor wins the first strike. The crowd exploded in cheers. Thousands of voices shaking the arena walls. Kalor raised his fist, smiling wide, and turned his burning eyes back to Daniel. "Your turn, little human. Show us how weak chance makes you." Daniel walked slowly to the table. The dice lifted into the air again, hovering before him, glowing like small suns. He did not rush, he simply studied them. His hand reached out, his fingers touched the fire, but he did not burn. He held the dice gently. Like a man holding glass, the crowd grew louder, mocking him. "He will fail, he will tremble, he will fall." Their voices thundered, but Daniel stood silent, breathing. He tossed the dice with a smooth, simple motion, not powerful, not dramatic, just calm. The dice rolled across the table, glowing symbols flashing faster than eyes could follow. They spun, they twisted, they slowed, until finally they stopped. The arena fell silent. The dice showed the same perfect alignment, the same glowing victory for one long breath. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the announcers froze in mid-flight, their wings stiff, their antennae trembling. Then the crowd erupted, not in laughter this time, but in shock, confusion, disbelief. Kalor's smile vanished. His red eyes narrowed into slits. His clawed hands gripped the edge of his throne. "Impossible," he whispered, though his voice still carried power. "A human cannot match me in chance." Daniel did not celebrate, he did not smile, he simply stepped back. His face calm, his voice steady. "Chance is not yours to command. It belongs to no one." The announcers regained their voice, their cries sharp and high. "The challenger wins, the round is equal. The game continues." Their voices shook as they spoke, as if even they did not believe their own words. Arya's breath caught in her chest. Her hands pressed against her heart. She had watched her father win countless games, twist rules, bend outcomes, but never had she seen anyone match him so cleanly, so silently. And now this human, this fragile outsider had done it without effort, without fear. The crowd, once united in mockery, was now split. Some still laughed, saying it was luck, nothing more. Others whispered that perhaps the human was not what he seemed. Perhaps chance itself bent around him. Kalor slammed his fist into the throne arm. The sound cracked like stone breaking, sparks flew. "Luck," he shouted, his voice echoing. "Nothing more than luck. The next trial will strip you bare, human, and then the galaxy will remember your weakness." Daniel simply looked at him, eyes calm, unblinking. "We will see," he said. The announcers cried out again, their metallic voices shaking. The first trial ends in balance. Kalor victorious, the human victorious, destiny yet undecided. Prepare for the second trial. The dice lifted back into the air, glowing softer now, their fire dimming as the table sank into the floor, the arena's stone plates grinding shut. Silence followed, heavy and thick. Thousands of aliens leaned forward, waiting for what would come next. Arya could not look away, her heart raced. Her mind screamed that this was madness, yet her eyes told her something else. The human was not like the others, not like the warriors her father had destroyed. His strength was hidden, quiet, and it was growing. Kalor sat back slowly. Though his face burned with rage, his smile returned sharp as a blade. "Very well, human, you survived this far. But the game of minds will break you?" The crowd howled again, eager, hungry, excited for the next challenge. Their voices rolled like thunder, echoing in the bones of every creature present. But Daniel stood still, his presence unshaken. The first trial had ended, and though it was meant to crush him, it had instead shifted the arena. Fear was no longer his burden. It was creeping now into the heart of the warlord himself. The gamble was alive, and the human was no longer a joke, he was a danger. The ground of the arena shook again, plates of black stone sliding apart, and from the depths rose a tall pillar of glass and light. Inside it floated a shifting puzzle, glowing with colors that twisted and bent like living fire. It was no ordinary puzzle. It was a construct of alien thought, built to trap the mind. The announcer's metallic voices rang out. "The second trial begins. The game of minds, the puzzle of infinity." The one who completes it controls the path of fate. The one who fails is lost. Their wings buzzed, their words sharp, and the crowd erupted with cheers. Lord Kalor stood, his tall frame towering like a mountain, his crimson armor gleaming under the lights. This is my arena, human. I have solved this puzzle 100 times. I have broken warriors with it. Their minds burned, their reason shattered. What will you do when your weak human thoughts collapse? Daniel Reeve did not move at first. He studied the glowing construct, his eyes calm, his breathing steady. To him, the puzzle was not frightening. It was beautiful. Its shifting shapes were not chaos, but patterns invisible to most, clear to him. Arya, standing at her father's side, watched closely. She remembered when she was younger. She had seen champions scream as the puzzle bent their minds. She had seen them fall to the ground with smoke in their eyes. Even strong alien generals had failed. But now she looked at the human, and instead of fear, she saw focus. Kalor placed his clawed hands on the glowing pillar. The puzzle responded at once, shifting into forms that twisted like storms. He moved with confidence, his fingers bending the shapes, forcing them into place. The crowd cheered. They knew his speed. They knew his strength, and once again he showed it. The announcers cried out, "Kalor advances, Kalor leads. His mind is the blade of victory." But Daniel did not rush. He stepped to the pillar with quiet steps, his hands rising slowly, his fingers brushing the surface. The puzzle shifted instantly. Its fire turned blue in his touch. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen the puzzle react like that. Kalor snarled, "Tricks, nothing more, tricks," his voice sharp as a blade. But Daniel ignored him, his eyes fixed on the puzzle. He moved carefully, watching, waiting, sliding pieces into place not with force, but with precision. Every move seemed small, but each one caused the entire structure to glow brighter. The patterns began to reveal themselves. The crowd grew restless. Some shouted that the human was cheating. Others argued he was simply lucky. But a growing silence began to spread as they realized something. Daniel was not just keeping up with Kalor. He was beginning to pull ahead. The announcers' voices cracked with disbelief. The human advances, the human shifts the pattern. The puzzle bends to his mind. Kalor's movements grew faster, angrier. His claws scratched sparks against the pillar. His eyes burned as he forced shapes into place. But the harder he pushed, the more the puzzle resisted, twisting away, rejecting his will. Daniel, however, seemed to flow with it, his movements smooth, his choices quiet. He was not forcing the puzzle, he was listening to it, guiding it. Like a river that carried him forward, Arya's lips parted in shock. Her father had always believed the puzzle obeyed strength, power, dominance, but the human showed something else. Patience, calm, understanding, and for the first time in her life, she saw the puzzle glow not with pain, but with harmony. Minutes stretched like hours. The arena silent except for the shifting hum of the glowing construct. Piece by piece the puzzle began to lock, its endless storm shaping into a perfect design. Kalor's side remained jagged, incomplete, broken. Finally, with a quiet click, Daniel's side lit up fully, the colors exploding into white light. The puzzle complete in his hands, the arena froze, no one breathed. The silence heavy as stone. Then the announcers screamed, their metallic voices cracking. "The human wins, the puzzle is complete. Daniel Reeve conquers the game of minds." The crowd erupted, not in laughter, not in mockery, but in chaos. Some shouted in fury, others in disbelief. Some remained silent, unable to understand what had happened. Kalor's face twisted in rage, his claws slammed into the pillar, shattering shards of glass and light into the air. "Impossible!" he roared, his voice shaking the arena. "This cannot be. A human cannot outthink me." But Daniel only stepped back, the light still glowing on his hands. His voice steady. It was not about strength. It was about seeing what you refused to see. Arya's heart raced. She felt her chest tighten. The human had done the impossible again. First chance, now the mind. She looked at him with new eyes, not as a stranger, not as a fragile outsider, but as something else, something her father feared. Kalor raised his arm, his voice a storm. "This is not over, human. The last trial will destroy you. You cannot survive what comes next," the announcers cried once more, their wings trembling. 2 trials complete, 1 remains. The final challenge awaits. The gamble of destiny draws near its end. The arena shook. The crowd's voices roared like thunder, but beneath the noise, a new feeling grew in their hearts, unease. The human was no longer a fool in their eyes, no longer a joke. He was becoming something far more dangerous. And in that moment, Even the galaxy itself seemed to lean closer. Waiting. The arena of Vorthen Prime was restless, the air thick with noise. Some aliens roared in anger, some hissed in disbelief, others whispered like shadows. The impossible had happened twice. The human had not only survived, he had matched Lord Kalor in chance, he had defeated him in mind. Now the galaxy demanded to see the end. Lord Kalor rose slowly from his throne, his massive frame glowing in the firelight. His armor clicked as he moved, his claws flexed. His voice cut through the storm of sound like a blade. Enough of games, enough of tricks, enough of luck and puzzles. The final trial begins now, and this time human. You will not leave alive. The crowd howled in approval, their voices shaking the walls of the arena. They wanted blood, they wanted fire. They wanted to see the human broken into dust. The announcers fluttered above, their voices sharp and metallic. The warlord declares a change, the final trial is altered. The last challenge will not be played on a table. It will not be solved in glass. It will be fought in the battlefield of survival. A living trial. A trial of death. The stone floor groaned, splitting apart, and from the cracks rose towers of steel and flame. The arena shifted into a different form. Walls of black metal curved high. Doors opened to reveal wild beasts chained in fire. Weapons glowed in racks of alien design. The place had become a war ground. Kalor's eyes burned, his grin cruel. This was never about luck or wit. This was always about power. And now you face me where no weak creature can stand. He stepped forward, his massive claws clanging against the stone, his voice heavy with rage and pride. You cannot outthink death, human. You can only die. Daniel stood still, his face unreadable. He looked at the twisted battlefield, then back at Kalor, his voice calm. If this is your game, I accept it, the crowd laughed. Their voices cruel. Some shouted wagers, some called for beasts to be released, others demanded weapons of fire and lightning. To them, this was already over, a fragile man against the greatest warlord of their age. But Arya's hands trembled, her heart pounded. She wanted to speak, to stop it, but her voice was locked in her throat. She could only watch as her father prepared to kill and the human prepared to resist. The announcers cried out, "The rules are spoken. Survive the battlefield, destroy the opponent. Victory goes to the last one standing, the trial begins." The drums of the arena thundered. The gates of the beasts opened. Monstrous creatures spilled into the field, their eyes burning, their teeth dripping venom. The crowd screamed in excitement. Kalor's laugh rolled like thunder. He picked up a massive blade from the rack, black as night, etched with fire. He swung it once, and the very air cracked. "Come, human, let me show you what real power is." Daniel did not take a weapon at first. He only moved forward with steady steps. The beasts circled, Kalor charged. The ground shook beneath him, but the human was calm, watching, waiting. The first beast lunged, its jaws wide. Kalor laughed, expecting the human to be torn apart. But Daniel moved with speed, stepping aside. His hands grabbed a fallen chain. In one motion, he swung it around the beast's neck. Pulling hard, the creature slammed to the ground. The crowd gasped. Daniel had no sword, no claws, no glowing armor, yet he turned a simple chain into a weapon. Kalor roared, his blade cutting the air. Sparks flying, tricks. Only tricks, he bellowed as he charged again. The battlefield became chaos. Beasts snapping, fire bursting, walls shaking. Kalor's strikes split stone, but Daniel used the field itself. Every weapon left behind, every shadow, every crack in the floor became part of his fight. He was not stronger, but he was faster, sharper, unpredictable. The announcers shouted, their voices breaking. The human survives, the human fights, the trial continues. The crowd no longer laughed. Their roars turned into silence, their disbelief heavy. They watched as the impossible repeated. The human was not falling, he was adapting. Every attack Kalor threw was answered with cunning. Every trap turned against him. Arya's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time, they were not tears of fear. They were tears of hope. She whispered under her breath, unheard by all, "Please, win." Kalor's fury grew with every failed strike. His power unmatched, but his control slipping. His blade cracked stone, his claws split walls, but the human slipped through like water. Untouched, finally, Kalor roared, his voice shaking the sky. "Enough!" His blade pointed straight at Daniel, his body shaking with rage. "You will not survive the final blow." Daniel stood, chain in hand, sweat on his brow. His eyes locked on Kalor, his voice steady as stone. "I don't need to survive everything, I only need to survive long enough to end this." The crowd gasped. Silence fell again. Even the beasts hesitated. The words of the human carried more weight than the roar of the warlord. The announcers trembled in the air. The final trial continues. The gamble draws to its sharpest edge. One more clash, one more risk. Destiny will be decided here. The arena shook under their voices. Fire burned high, shadows stretched long, and every soul knew the dangerous twist had been played. The game was no longer only about power. It was about survival, cunning, and courage. And as the human stood against the warlord, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The battlefield burned with fire and smoke. Beasts snarled in the corners. Chains rattled across the floor. The walls glowed red with heat, and above it all the crowd screamed with hunger. Thousands of voices demanding an end. Demanding the human's death. Lord Kalor towered over the arena floor. His blade dripping with sparks, his armor cracked from his own fury. His eyes glowing like molten stone, he raised his voice and shouted, "I will finish this now. I will crush this human. And all of you will see what happens when weakness challenges power." The crowd cheered wildly, their claws, fangs, and tentacles clashing like drums of war. They wanted to see Daniel broken. They wanted to see him torn apart. But Daniel Reeve stood steady, his chest rising slowly, sweat dripping from his brow, his hands gripping only a chain and a shard of broken steel he had picked from the ground. He looked small compared to the warlord, fragile compared to the beasts, yet in his eyes there was no fear, only focus. The announcer's wings shook as they cried out. The trial continues, the human still stands. But how long can he endure? How long until he breaks? Kalor charged, his massive blade tearing through the air, the ground cracking under his weight. Beasts leapt forward to strike. The arena thundered with chaos, but Daniel moved not with strength but with speed and precision. He ducked under the warlord's strike, the blade missing him by inches, sparks exploding around him. He rolled across the floor, wrapped the chain around a beast's leg, and pulled. The creature slammed into another, their snarls echoing in confusion. The crowd gasped. Daniel did not fight like a warrior. He fought like a survivor. Every move was clever, every step calculated. He did not meet power with power. He used Kalor's fury against him. He used the beast's strength against themselves. Kalor roared, his blade cutting the air again and again. But each swing left him open. Each strike missed its mark. Daniel twisted away, always just beyond reach, always using the battlefield itself as his shield. The announcers shouted, their voices trembling. The human evades, the human adapts, the human turns weakness into weapon. Arya's heart raced, her eyes wide as she watched from the side of the throne. She had never seen anyone fight her father like this. Every warrior she remembered had met him head-on, and every warrior had fallen. But this man refused to play by her father's rules. He was rewriting them with every breath. Kalor grew angrier, his strikes faster, his blade heavier, but anger clouded his mind. His movements became reckless, his power turned wild. Daniel saw it, he waited for it. He let Kalor swing wide, then stepped aside, letting the warlord's blade crash into the wall, sparks exploding, the shock rattling the arena. Daniel darted forward, his shard of steel striking the edge of Kalor's armor, leaving a thin scar of silver across the black plates. The crowd gasped, silence cutting through the roar. The human had drawn first blood. Kalor looked down at the mark, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with rage. "You dare!" he bellowed, his voice shaking stone. "You dare wound me?" Daniel's answer was calm, his voice steady. "I told you, strength is not enough." The crowd no longer laughed. Their voices were split. Some shouted for Kalor's victory, others whispered in disbelief. A few, very few, began to chant softly, "Human, human," their voices trembling with shock. The beasts circled again. One lunged, Daniel moved low, letting it leap over him, its weight carrying it straight into Kalor's blade. The warlord snarled as the creature's blood splashed across his armor. Arya covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes filling with tears. She could not believe what she was seeing. Her father, the undefeatable, was losing control. And this human, this fragile outsider, was beginning to win. Kalor's strikes slowed, his breaths heavier, his power still vast, but his focus scattered. Daniel pressed his advantage, not with strength but with timing, striking when the warlord missed, pulling beasts into Kalor's path, turning every danger into a weapon. The announcers screamed, "The human gains ground." The human forces the warlord back, the trial shifts. The impossible becomes real. Kalor's voice thundered once more, desperate now. "No, no, I will not fall to you. I am Lord of Vorthen." I am master of this arena. He raised his blade for one final crushing blow, a strike that could split stone. But Daniel moved first, quick as lightning. Throwing the chain around Kalor's arm, pulling it with all his strength, the blade's path shifted, slamming into the ground instead of the human. The shock cracked the floor. The warlord stumbled for the first time. The arena froze, the silence deep, the crowd holding its breath. Daniel stood tall, his chain in hand, his shard of steel raised, his voice cutting through the silence. You built this battlefield to destroy me, but it belongs to me now. The crowd erupted, some screamed in rage, others in awe. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble with the words. Arya's heart pounded, she whispered to herself. He can win. He can truly win. Kalor's chest heaved, his rage boiling, his pride breaking. For the first time in his rule, fear flickered in his eyes. The announcers cried out with all their strength. The final trial nears its end. The warlord stumbles, the human rises. The gamble of destiny stands on the edge of its last breath. The fire burned higher. The smoke thickened, the beasts shrieked. But none of it mattered. All eyes were locked on the two figures in the center, the warlord of 100 victories, and the human who refused to fall. The advantage had shifted, and for the first time the galaxy believed. The arena of Vorthan Prime shook like a living beast. Fire burned along the walls. Smoke curled into the black sky. The crowd of thousands roared in fury and awe, for they had seen the impossible. They had seen the human Daniel Reeve turn chance into victory, turn mind into mastery, turn survival into power, and now only one truth remained. The end. Lord Kalor stood in the center. His armor cracked, his blade chipped, his breath heavy like thunder, his red eyes burned with hatred. Yet behind the fire was something he had never felt before. Fear. Daniel stood opposite him, chain still in one hand, shard of steel in the other, his chest rising and falling, his body marked with bruises and blood, but his eyes calm, unshaken, focused only on the warlord before him. The announcers hovered high, their wings trembling, their voices metallic and sharp. The final clash begins, the last strike decides all. The warlord or the human, power or defiance. Destiny waits. The crowd leaned forward. Thousands of eyes wide, claws gripped stone, tentacles coiled tight, fangs snapped in anticipation. They wanted blood. They wanted the end, and they did not know whose it would be. Kalor raised his blade high, his voice rolling like a storm. You will not take this from me. Human, I have ruled through fire, I have crushed empires. I have destroyed champions greater than you, and I will not fall to weakness. Daniel's voice cut through, steady and low. You already have. The words struck the arena like a strike of lightning. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Kalor roared in rage, his body surging forward. His blade flashing with fire, the ground split as he struck. But Daniel moved, faster than he had before, rolling beneath the blade, pulling the chain tight around Kalor's arm once more. The steel groaned, sparks flew. The warlord staggered. Daniel's shard of steel slashed across Kalor's chest, leaving a burning mark that spread like fire through the armor. The warlord bellowed in fury, his voice shaking the heavens. The crowd gasped. Thousands of voices bursting into chaos, the announcers screamed. The human strikes, the warlord bleeds. The balance shifts, but Kalor did not fall. He swung again, his blade cutting through walls, through beasts, through fire itself. He was pure fury, a storm of violence. Yet every strike missed, every swing met only smoke. The human moved like water, flowing where the blade could not reach. Arya watched with her heart in her throat, her hands shaking, her eyes wide. She whispered to herself again and again, Please, please, let him win. Kalor raised his blade one last time, higher than before. His roar tearing the sky. Die, human. Die and be forgotten. But Daniel did not step back, he did not dodge, he stepped forward, straight into the storm, his chain wrapping tighter, pulling the warlord's arm down, his shard of steel flashing upward, striking at the exact moment Kalor swung. The two forces collided, blade against shard, power against precision. The ground shattered, the arena shook, fire burst outward in a wave of heat, and for one heartbeat time itself seemed to stop. Then the blade of Kalor cracked, a line of light splitting through its black steel. It shattered into fragments that rained down like fire. The warlord stumbled, his massive frame crashing to his knees, his armor broken, his chest heaving, his eyes wide with disbelief. The crowd gasped as one, the silence so deep it felt endless. Daniel stood tall, his shard of steel glowing faintly in his hand, his voice calm, steady, and final. Never bet against humanity. The arena exploded with sound. Some screamed in rage, some in awe, some in fear, for they had witnessed something no one believed possible. The warlord Kalor, the master of chance, the ruler of minds, the breaker of champions, had fallen to a human. Arya's tears spilled freely. Her hands pressed to her chest, her heart racing with relief and wonder. She looked at Daniel and whispered, "You saved me." Though her words were lost in the storm of noise. Kalor groaned, his voice weak, his pride shattered. "Impossible. A human cannot win." His body slumped, his crown of iron falling to the ground. The announcers cried out, their voices broken and shaking. "The gamble is complete. The warlord falls, the human wins, the daughter is free. Destiny is rewritten." The crowd erupted again, but their voices had changed. There was no laughter now, no mockery, no scorn, only fear, only awe, for they understood a truth they had never wanted to believe. Humans were dangerous. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were not weak. Daniel dropped the chain, the shard falling from his hand, his breath heavy, but his eyes calm. He turned to Arya, meeting her gaze. She looked at him with hope and gratitude. Her chains no longer chains, her future no longer bound. The arena shook with voices. The galaxy itself seemed to echo the shock. This was not the end. This was the beginning. For if one human could defeat a warlord, then what could humanity truly become?